Hi, everyone. You are watching The Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
This group of ascended masters loves your questions and loves to answer questions to help you grow and become a better you. They are a group of ascended masters and they have lived lives on the earth plane. They are now in spirit, but use all of their energy available to them there, all the information available, plus what they've learned throughout their lifetimes to help us in our lifetimes. So feel free to send your questions because they love answering your questions. Thanks for listening.
All right. And Ginny, thanks for being the clear channel to bring through their answers. Um, this is just a topic. We're going to see where it takes us. But one of our viewers sent in a question. What is the definition of healing?
It is important to understand, my dear. There are many definitions for the word healing. Healing is that part of self that knows who one is, know what one wants, and when one is able to move forward in that sense of self and being, one is able to allow the healing, so to speak, that is necessary in order to allow one the growth required to move oneself forward. Sometimes it is a physical healing. Sometimes it is an emotional healing. And sometimes it is that part of self that has been recognized in such a way as to allow the emotional upset to be cleared and completed. In our estimation, healing is that part of self that knows who one is and what one needs. And when one is able to allow oneself to complete a process such as that, one is able to allow oneself to move forward. In our estimation, it is the greatest gift that one can give oneself, as when one is in the process of healing oneself, great things can happen for oneself. There is a great deal on the physical level when one considers healing to be a part of the process of healing the physical body. However, we can tell you, as part and parcel of healing the physical body, there also is a part of the spiritual self that is also required in the healing of oneself. When one is on the earth plane, one cannot always be aware that there is another part of self that is processing healing as well. One is contributing to the other. One is helping the other. And when one heals on the earth plane, one is healing that part of self and spirit that is looking to be cleared of certain issues of being. And when one is in spirit and one is on the earth plane looking to be healed, the spiritual part of self is that part that allows the healing of the physical self to complete as well. If one is in conjunction with the other, one is part and parcel of the other. There is always both involved, even though it may seem like the healing on the earth plane is of its own accord. It is not. Do not be concerned.
Okay, so it sounds like or maybe I'll just say what I'm getting from this and they can correct me if I'm wrong or expand on it. So for example, so they're saying physical healing and spiritual healing are part and parcel to one another. So when someone is clumsy and sprains their ankle, for example, and now there's physical healing to be done on the ankle.
Yeah.
That may be the situation that allows, it's like the right breeding ground for something else in the spiritual realm that needs to get healed, that might be more like healing helplessness, because now you feel like you have to rely on others to help get you around. So, like, the physical might be like the sprained ankle, but then the spiritual might be something more emotionally related. Would they say that's a good understanding of what they were trying to explain?
It is important to understand that you are quite correct in your knowing. However, it is not quite as complicated as you would like it to express itself. It is important to understand that when one sprains one's ankle, for instance, one is able to say, "Oh, I was able to heal myself of my ankle sprain," and that is quite true. One is able to heal oneself of that. However, the part that has been neglected is that part of the spiritual part, that part of the spiritual self uh, participation in the healing. One cannot always know that there is a spiritual participation. It is important to understand that when one allows oneself to move forward in the state of being who they are automatically connected. One is always connected to oneself and spirit. It is the mind self that creates the delineation. It is the mind self that cannot always comprehend. However, in our estimation, there are those who are quite aware and those who are quite unaware. And in either case, the spiritual self is always in connection and in completion with the physical self. Do not be concerned.
Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, I feel like I'm always curious about that, like maybe because of what I do, when people come to me with physical complaints, I can often become aware of what they are healing energetically or spiritually, emotionally, however you want to talk. Like, I can get a sense of, oh, there's a past life component here that's getting worked out
Right.
simultaneously with the physical.
Right.
Or I can become aware of the emotional. Okay, but so here's something that happens a lot in this energetic healing space, where people might say, they'll use language like, oh, you know, your shoulder hurts because you're holding on too much to a relationship, right? When there's almost like a definite correlation, like, spoken. But I'm wondering if it's really not so much like, oh, the pain is a physical manifestation of something emotional. That maybe could be true, but also what could be true is that the pain is not a physical manifestation of something emotional, but it arises and allows something emotional to be healed. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Like the cart before the horse type thing.
yeah, exactly. What can they say about that?
It is important to understand that no matter what comes first, each part of oneself is healing. It does not matter if the shoulder is hurting because of an emotional issue or if it is an emotional issue that is causing the pain. One is well in conjunction with the other, and each one is helping the other heal itself. We would, however, like you to understand that when one is in an emotional state of being, it does not always manifest as pain. It manifests sometimes as an anxiety, for instance, or a depression, or even that part of self that says, I am no longer important on this earth plane. There are those parts of self that cannot allow themselves to connect with themselves. Therefore, many are unaware that it is not always as simple or as convoluted as it may seem. We can tell you when one is in an emotional state, there are many ways of healing that state. Sometimes it is by prayer, as many are quite sure that prayer is the answer for them. When one is in a state of prayer, however, one is normally or most often in a state of meditation, therefore allowing themselves to connect with themselves, allowing the healing part to take place. When one believes that one is in prayer, one is able to allow the energy to flow. Therefore, one is able to allow the connection. In our estimation, it is also important to understand that there are the physical ways of healing. However, when one chooses the physical route, sometimes for them, it is the only way that they see that they can allow the healing to take place. We would like you to understand that no matter how one chooses to heal, one is always in constant connection with oneself. And if one is in if one is amenable to allowing the information to flow, one is able to allow the information to heal. If one is not willing to allow oneself to know that they are in connection with oneself, it's like it's floundering, as there's only one way on the earth plane to heal, and they are searching for it, when in reality it lies within one's own heart self. Do not be concerned.
I love that they just said that, because oftentimes, like the circles you and I kind of hang out with, or like we have a lot of friends who are energy workers, or we spend a lot of time with energy workers, or people who understand this concept of healing can be experienced through energetic means, right?
Right.
But sometimes the physical route has to be taken. It's part of it. So you can't ignore that part,
True.
right? And so to insist to another that, like, no, you just got to do this, you just got to do that. It's like you're throwing away an entire part of the healing process. And then on the other side, there's people who maybe aren't aware of, don't believe in, are not open to the spiritual side, and they insist that it's like it's this surgery that's going to do it, it's this medication that's going to do it, when that might get you so far, but like the opening to the energetic process would be very important for them as well. So it's like, you kind of have like this spectrum where there's beliefs on either side of staunch all physical, staunch all energetic, and really what's needed is both.
Both, right.
And I know for me, I've lived on both sides of that spectrum. Earlier in my life, I didn't even know what energy work was. So if somebody explained it to me, they'd be like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't get it, you know? And I'd be like, nah, that's not even, if they could get through to me what it was, I'd probably be like, are you nuts? Where then the pendulum swung the other way, and it was like, no, you really just have to, open to the energy and you'll be miraculously healed. And I've lived on that side too. And like, I feel like I'm navigating the middle now of trusting that both processes are equally important. And we're on the earth plane. So the physical is very important. This is the plane of physical matter and existence and processes. So we can't not do that. We're here to do that. So I love what they said about that.
Yeah, I think too, when people say if they're really just unaware of all the energy work, that it's available for one, but that can help them connect with themselves. I think a lot of times they'll go in for, say, surgery or something like that. And when they finally realized what has happened, it's not nearly as bad as they thought it was going to be. It's just that they have been praying or they have been doing those types of things to allow the energy to flow. And so, yes, the energy helps, and the physical, definitely, you have a physical body, you have to take care of the physical as well.
Yeah.
I tend to go more to the energetic, and I think there's a part of me that resents the physical. It's like I just want to be in the energetic all the time, which of course I can. I have a physical body on the earth plane.
Yeah.
So
I think I do both where I get like, if I have a symptom, I'm like, well, let me just rule out the physical. Because
yeah,
I feel like it's probably energetic. And it usually is for me. But let me just rule that out.
right.
And usually the doctors are like, yeah, we have no idea. We can't find what you're talking about.
Exactly.
So then I'm like, okay, so it's probably just energetic.
Mhm.
I don't know why that's my,
Yeah.
I'll do the energy work, but then I maybe won't fully trust it, and then I'll go to the doctor, rule it out, and then I can fully trust. You know what I mean? There's like this dance that I do. I only do it for myself. When it comes to others, I feel a lot more clear, but yeah, it's funny
Yeah.
the dances we do.
Yeah. And I prefer the energetic, of course. And then I really don't like to go to the doctor if I don't have to. It
Yeah.
has to be really, really bad for me to go to the doctor.
Too funny.
So
All right, well, let's see more about this. I had something, let me see if it'll come back to me. Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask about, I know we've covered this before, but I feel like to cover it in this episode in case someone hasn't seen it. It's like, I feel like they said once, and if they could talk about this again, where like the earth plane is like where we come to experience contrast and duality and different types of things and physical things, right? And so like in a past life, you may have incarnated and experienced something. I'm going to ask about both the physical and the emotional, right? Let's say you experienced a physical malady, an injury, an accident, something like that. So that's one part. And then the other part, let's say you experienced some sort of emotional trauma, right? And in that lifetime, you didn't fully resolve the the healing process of either the physical or the emotional. And then you come back and you reincarnate, right? Because maybe I feel like I heard them say, and this is where I'm going to ask them to correct me if I'm wrong, that whatever was created here on the earth plane has to get resolved here on the earth plane. So if you didn't resolve it in that lifetime, you must like come back in order to resolve those things because this is the plane of existence they were created. Can they speak about that, correct me where I'm wrong, and just elaborate on that?
sure. But before we do that, I just have to say something's been on my mind, and I have to say it, or
Say it.
just stay there. It's like I do tend to go to the energetic, but I also go for my physicals, my yearly physicals, and I go for my dental checkups. You can't just ignore the physical body. It's there and you need to take care of it.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it is important to understand, my dear, that when it is that one creates an issue on the earth plane, it very often needs to be completed on the earth plane. However, there are ways in spirit to allow the completion as well. It is not as cut and dry as one might want to believe. in our estimation. There are many instances on the earth plane where emotional disconnection is established. However, it is also important to understand that in the spiritual, a great deal is able to be healed and completed on the emotional level. It is the physical that creates the problem when one is on the earth plane and creates a physical issue. Then the physical issue has to be completed on the earth plane. As there is no body on the spiritual level in order to allow completion, there is only energy. One is energy in spirit, one is energy on the earth plane, and that energy also on the earth plane needs to have an earth body in order to experience the experience. In our estimation, it is that one is able to allow oneself to complete processes on both levels. However, this physical needs to be completed on the physical level. The energetic can be completed on both levels. Do not be concerned.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I'd love for them to elaborate on examples of physical. So like, and when they say resolved, I'd love to understand that more. So like, for example, let's say someone has a lifetime where, I don't know, I'm just using an example. Maybe it's stupid to even, not stupid, but pointless to use an example. But let's say they were shot with an arrow in their ankle and now they can't walk. And they died without that being resolved. And so the next lifetime, they come back to resolve that physical issue. But what does resolution look like? Does it look like the ankle healing? Is it more an emotional acceptance of the physical state? Like, can you give us some examples and elaborate on that?
It is important to understand it is all of the above. Sometimes things are repeated on the earth plane to be allowed to, it's like expand and flourish and then heal. Sometimes it is the energetic healing that takes place. In the example that you have given, there is no recreation. There is, however, perhaps a limp, or perhaps a pain, or perhaps that part of self that says, I'm no longer interested in allowing myself to walk on that foot. There are those things that can be completed on the spiritual level as well as the physical. When one is unable to walk, so to speak, and then miraculously heals itself and the person can walk in a month's time, it is that one has allowed oneself the healing energy to complete the process that was begun on the earth plane. However, that process that was begun may have been begun on the current life cycle, or it may have begun on a previous life cycle. When it is completed in the spiritual. Do not be concerned.
Yeah, it's interesting. You hear a lot of people who do like a past life regression and they'll see some sort of physical ailment and then they from a past life and then they look at their body now and there's a scar there that
Yeah.
like mimics kind of that thing.
It is important to understand that one has nothing to do with the other. It is always an energetic completion. And if one should have a scar, it is because one has chosen to allow oneself to be who one is regardless. Do not be concerned.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I said scar, I meant like a birthmark, but same thing.
Yeah.
Physical marking. How interesting. Wow, so that gives some insight to miraculous healing.
Yeah.
I mean, usually my guess is there's usually a catalyst for that miraculous healing to occur, for someone to step into the allowing, like a new surgery, or maybe not a new surgery, but like, like an energy healing, or I don't know, they allow themselves to be healed.
Right.
And I think the allowing, well, this is me again separating the earthbound self and the spiritual self. I almost said the allowing probably happens on the spiritual level, but they are one and the same.
They are one and the same, except I think in order for our minds to comprehend that, they need to be two separate things.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the spiritual level, needing, let's see, how do I want to put this? If I'm in the physical and I know the healing needs to take place on the emotional level, which is the spiritual level, I separate that in my mind's eye as seeing my physical body here and my spiritual body, say, above me or wherever it would be, up in the ether somewhere. So that way I can comprehend that there is another part to me, but then I can allow that energy to flow. And I am all one because I'm allowing my own energy to flow. However, in my mind's eye, with the earth mind, it's two separate things, when in reality, it is just me.
That was a beautiful description, and I think it illustrates that process very well, and how the mind self can create visuals to allow the healing, but really it's all one.
So, yeah, well, that's how I see it. That's my mind, my
I,
mind's.
I do the same thing, Jenny, and I think you explaining your process is probably helping others to be
Yeah.
able to do the same, to step into that allowing. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, the key is in the allowing. And,
Yeah.
and if you, somebody said to me one time, if you, um, you know, can't allow yourself the allowing, be willing to allow. So when you be willing, that helps in the, I guess, the change of the energy or whatever, or the change of the mind.
Yes.
Just to be willing to allow it will make a difference.
So, well, with that in mind, like someone might be listening to this and be like, oh, so all I have to do is be willing and allow and do this visual and I'll be miraculously healed. And then it doesn't happen, for example. So, is that because really the spiritual self is driving the bus? Or is it because there might be another aspect of self that is blocking that miracle from happening? How would they describe that? Or
Personally think it has to do with just being willing to be open to learn and to be open to be. Um, Sometimes we put so many things in our way, in our minds. Oh, I can't do this because, and this is going to happen if I this, and it's just be willing to release that stuff and allow yourself to be who you are. We would like you to understand, my dear, that there is far more to the process than one can understand on the earth plane. There's a great deal that happens on the spiritual level in connection with that on the earth level that the mind just cannot understand at this time of the being. Therefore, we would highly recommend that one not stress over the details, just allow it to be and allow oneself to be willing to learn more. That is, I'm getting that is all. That is all one can do, is allow oneself to be willing and allowing of being who one is. Do not be concerned, all is love.
awesome.
And when I hear allowing to be who one is, for me, it's allowing my earth self and allowing my spiritual self, which is the one me, but allowing me to connect with all of me. And no matter what my mind says I can or can't do,
Yeah. Awesome. I love that, Ginny.
Yeah, that's what I know.
All right. Well, I guess the closing question would be, is there anything else they would like us to know about what it means to heal or about healing?
It is important to understand that we have covered a great deal about healing. And if one just understands that there is more to oneself than that which meets the eye, one will be allowing oneself to be who one is when one is. And that also includes not only the physical and the spiritual, but all that one wants, needs, and loves. Do not be concerned, all is love. That's it.
Sorry, I couldn't click on the unmute button. Oh, awesome, Ginny. Thank you so much for channeling. That was so very insightful and I think like a good crash course on healing. I mean, we hear a lot of that word is thrown around a lot these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah. What does it actually mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? And what's really happening there? And I think if you guys are listening and you like this topic, there are other videos where we talk about this more. But this is a great, concise video about healing. But we invite you to check out the other videos and see what else the multitude has to say about this.
Yeah, that would be great. Uh, so thank you everyone for watching and listening and allowing yourselves to be who you are. And thank you, Kelly, for your questions. And we're open to more questions, so please go on Kelly's website and type them in. We're happy to have them.
Yeah, we definitely.
We would also like you to understand, my dears, that when it is that one is able to allow oneself to be who one is, the questions will arise. There is no efforting involved. It is just being who you are and allowing. And when one allows oneself to be like in connection with self, the questions that one would like to have answers will come to mind. Do not be concerned. Thank you all for allowing us to be a part of your being, and all is love.
Thanks, multitude.
You're quite welcome, they said.
Thanks, Ginny. We'll see you next time on the Self Connection.
Thank you, Kelly. Bye-bye.
Bye.